Follow Instagram @lina, Facebook Lina, dan subscribe channel ini ya.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this debate. The House will come to order. I am pleased to welcome you to English Parliamentary Debate 20 and 22. The motion for today's debate is, this House would eliminate age restriction for marriage. Representing the government are the Prime Minister, Roikhanatul Hidayah, Deputy Prime Minister, Diah Ayu Pertiwi, Member for Government, Fadia Aninda Rizqi, Government Whip, Fida Imroati Saadah. Representing the opposition are Leader of the Opposition, Mislina, Deputy Leader of the Opposition, Khomsan Nur Asih, Member of the Opposition, Liyatun Nadiyah, Opposition Whip, Farida. Each debater will have at least 5 minutes to deliver his or her remarks. The speakers speak in rotation, beginning with the first team member of first opposition, the Prime Minister. I call upon the first speaker to introduce the proposition case.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
The Honorable Jury and entire academic community of EIM Parliament, the Honorable Proposition and Opposition team, and the audience. I am Roikhanatul Hidayah as Prime Minister. Today's motion is, this House will eliminate age restriction marriage. I agree with that motion. Humans were created as social beings, namely beings who need each other and depend on each other. And from this independence, one way to complete the link between man and woman is to tie them in a sacred bond called marriage. Marriage is a way to legitimize a bond between a male and female couple so that they become husband and wife pair. In Article 1 paragraph 1 of the marriage law, marriage is defined as an inner and outer bond between a man and a woman as husband and wife, with the aim of forming a happy and eternal family based on the one Godhead. To form a family, it must be prepared carefully, including the couple who will form a family must be measured, both biologically and pedagogically or responsibly. According to Law Number 16 years 2019, which is an amendment to Law Number 1 year 1974 regarding marriage, the minimum age for marriage is 19 years. However, there are exceptions if you have not reached the age of 19 but have the approval of your parents and the court, you can apply for marriage. Then, there are two terms when we discuss the age limit for marriage, namely child marriage and early marriage. Child marriage is a term for marriage carried out by children aged 0 until 18 years, while from the marriages between the ages of 19 until 25 known as early marriage are not too mature, both morally and materially. However, in reality, there are many early marriages, namely marriages that occur between men and women who are immature and mature based on the law, as well as from a psychological perspective. Of the many human desires, sexual desires are difficult to control, and one of the effects is the occurrence of marriage at a young age. Early marriage is not a new phenomenon, both in Indonesia and in other countries. According to Liyatun 2015, the advantages of early marriage are avoiding sex behavior and stepping on old age, no longer having young children. This is accordance with what was conveyed by informant 3, namely the positive impact of early marriage, both from a religious perspective is avoiding the occurrence of adultery or avoiding free sex behavior because sexual needs are met, as well as the assumption that if you marry young old age, no longer have young child. In addition to this, the positive impact of marriage at a young age is that it can reduce the burden on parents because by marrying of their children, all the needs of their children will be met by the husband. From the coverage of SCTV 6 November 12, 2015, it is known that based on a survey conducted by Plan International, in Indonesia there are still many early marriages among children and adolescents. As many 38% of girls under the age of 18 are married. Meanwhile, the percentage of undergrad married men is only 3.7%. Apparently, there are several reasons that encourage them to marry early, such as the strong tradition and perspective of the community, especially in rural areas, which are still driving force for some other girls. Then, what is the age limit for marriage in an Islamic perspective? The Messenger of Allah advised young people to get married immediately so that they lower their eyes and keep their eyes on the genitals. In general, the Prophet did not prohibit marriage at a young age. Based on the hadith, being able is one of the things that is considered capable of marrying. Islam recognizes two terms puberty. Akil Baligh is a benchmark for someone to get married. People who have reached puberty are considered to be able to distinguish between good and bad. Age of puberty generally occurs between the ages of 9 until 17 years. Ustaz Muhammad Husnul SSI said that if you look at the fiqh law, marriages carried out by someone who has reached puberty, the law is valid by fulfilling the pillars and condition of marriage according to Islam. Okay, thank you for the attention. That's all from me.
I thank the member for her remarks. We shall now hear the first speaker for the opposition, Leader of Opposition.
The question for marriage is still an issue that continues to be discussed and studied. This is because many people think that the most important thing in a marriage is readiness without considering other social factors such as age. Lack of public awareness about age restriction of our marriage causes many early marriage to occur. Early marriage is not a trivial matter because it involves the future of the child himself, his family, society, and even the country. My question is, why does the age restriction for marriage need to be eliminated? But we think eliminating age restriction for marriage is currently not something needs to be done. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, salam kebajikan bagi kita semua. Dear audience, proposition team and opposition team, I am Mislina, the first speaker from opposition team rejecting today's motion. Getting married is not a joke and should be considered carefully. Age is something that should be considered before someone decides to get married. Because when a person is not yet mature, a person tends to have an unstable condition both physically and psychologically. While this is very necessary to solve problems in the household, there are so many cases such as depression, neglect of children, negative impacts on children's growth and development, children's rights are not fulfilled, domestic violence, pregnancy disorder, economic problems, and even divorce that occur among couples who marry at a young age due to their mental and physically unpreparedness to face a very complex married life. Okay, you might be right about your argument. However, in the hadith narrated by Imam Tabrani and Hakim, whoever marries and then they have complex of their worship or religion. From the hadith, it can be seen that marriage is not a joke in Islam because it is a form of perfecting religion, so it must be carried out with all of care and full consideration. According to ulama Quraisy, no one has set an age limit for the prospective bride before marriage, which is stated in the Quran and the Sunnah is the purpose of marriage. According to him, akil balik is seen from his physical readiness but also one's mental readiness. Meanwhile, children aged 60 until 19 years tend to be unstable from various sides. So, the age of 16 until 19 years is still too young. Because it's still too young, needs to be considered before someone chooses to get married. Getting married in Islam is a once in a lifetime worship. When a couple is at a mature age, physically and psychologically mature, they will be able to survive and take on more complex responsibilities and face the burdens and problems that might arise in marriage. That way, marriage will be more awake and avoid problems and even divorce, which is highly discouraged in Islam. The important reason why we are opposing this motion because age restriction for marriage is the state's commitment to protecting the women and children's rights. Law number 16, 2019, amendment from Law number 1, 1974 concerning marriage explained that the minimum age limit for a person to be allowed to get married is 19 years. This is because to protect the rights of children and women, it's starting from those in the womb until the age of 18 years, which has previously been regulated in Law number 23, 2002 concerning child protection. Then, the form of equality between men and women without any age discrimination for marriage, and most importantly, the age limit is considered to have matured physically and mentally to be able to carry out marriage in order to realize the purpose of marriage properly without ending in divorce and getting healthy. Quality, the rights of children's growth and development are fulfilled, including the right to assistance and to have a high education. Moreover, age restriction for marriage reducing the risk of having early marriage from the health aspect. Reporting from the Minister of Health of the Republic Indonesia page explaining on the many negative risks posed by marriage and an immature age. The first, psychological disorder. In a study states that children who marry at a young age tend to experience psychological disorders such as anxiety, stress, or depression, and some even choose to commit suicide. This condition occurs because of their unpreparedness in carrying out the burdens and responsibilities that arise after marriage. According to the psychiatrist at Omni Hospital Pulau Mas Jakarta, Dr. Jimmy M.P. Aretoning SPKJ, psychologically child marriage can cause trauma and a crisis of confidence, then emotion don't develop properly. Child marriage also causes cognitive impairment such as not daring to make decisions, difficulty solving problems, and birth are prone to postnatal mental disorders such as depression after giving birth or menopausal baby blue syndrome, which occurs due to hormonal change, fatigue, mental stress, and feeling a lack of assistance during childbirth. And then pregnancy complication. Pregnancy at an early age is a very risk for various complications that endanger the mother and fetus. The reason is the young age of 20 until 20 years, the reproductive organs are still in development stage. If the fetus, the possible risks are premature birth, stunting, or a low birth weight. In mothers, giving birth at a young age is a risk of causing preeclampsia and anemia. If left untreated, this condition can lead to serious complications such as eclampsia, which can be fatal and even death for both mother and baby. According to PBS and UNICEF, 2016 data, child marriage causes early pregnancy and childbirth, which is associated with a high mortality rate and abnormal condition for the mother because a girl's body is not yet fully mature for childbirth. Girls aged 10 until 14 years have a 5 times greater risk of dying in a pregnancy and childbirth than women aged 20 until 24 years, and globally, deaths caused by pregnancy are the leading cause of death for girls aged 15 until 19 years. Okay, thank you for your attention. That's all from me.
I thank the member for her remarks. I now call upon the second speaker for the proposition, Deputy Prime Minister.
Okay, I am Diah Ayu Pertiwi as the second speaker of the proposition team. I agree with the motion. And then let me come to my first argument. In marriage, there are many things that need to be prepared and considered before someone gets married. Starting from financial problems, administrative requirements, and the condition of someone who is getting married, it is important to know. To carry out the marriage, the age limit is considered to have matured physically and mentally in order to realize the purpose of marriage properly. A person's maturity is not determined by his age, but the real maturity is physically and mentally have mental stability. People who are mature in age are not necessarily mature in their minds, souls, and mentally. Not only that, Indonesian Council of Religious Scholars asserts that religious law, including Islam, doesn't set an age limit for marriage. In Islam, only regulate baligh or maturity with some sense. First, girls are 9 years old or older and have menstruated. Second, the boy or girl is 9 years old or more and has had a nocturnal orgasm. Third, men or women who have reached 15 years without menstrual conditions and nocturnal orgasm. So maturity in Islam is the age range of 9 years to 15 years. Then regarding pregnancy at an early age, which is considered a risk of harm to the mother and fetus, as you said before, here we discuss the age limit for marriage, not pregnancy. Indeed, one of the purposes of marriage is to have children. However, if it is found that someone is not ready to pregnant, it is enough for that person to delay their pregnancy. Because marriage doesn't require a person to have children as soon as possible afterward. However, the sense of the maturity in Islam that I mentioned earlier, actually it is also shows they have reached the age of adolescent or mature physically. In addition, like you said before, Muslim scholar Farida Shihab state there is no set age limit for the prospective bride before marriage, which is stated in the Quran and the Sunnah is the purpose of marriage. From this, we know that marriage is done to achieve the purpose of marriage. I might add that the Prophet advised young people to get married immediately so that they lower their eyes and guard their genitals. In Islam, the law of marriage is determined based on the circumstance and abilities of the person, which is divided into 5 classifications. First, wajib or obligatory. Marriage can be said as an obligation if someone has been able to build a household, both physically, mentally, and financially. Meanwhile, for a woman herself, marriage is obligatory if she is unable to earn a living for herself, while marriage is the only way. Second, sunnah. This law applies to someone who is able to get married but cannot provide for his wife financially. Third, mubah or permissible. If there is nothing that requires someone to marry, both in terms of finance, biology, and age. And the fourth, makruh. If someone plans to get married but doesn't intend to have children. And the last, haram or forbidden. The law of marriage can become haram if a person doesn't have the financial ability to support his wife both physically and mentally. Next is the issue of divorce. Divorce doesn't only happen in early marriage. Married at an adult age doesn't guarantee the avoidance of divorce. Many out there, both ordinary people and public figures, who experience divorce even in adulthood, but the age of the person and the age of marriage. So early marriage cannot be said as one of the causes of divorce in a marriage. In brief, the age restriction marriage should be eliminated in light of the arguments and facts I have presented. Okay, thank you for your attention. That's all from me.
Thank the member for her remarks. I now call upon the second speaker for the opposition, Deputy Leader of the Opposition.
The advent of age limit for marriage can have an impact on the practice of early marriage. According to research by South Comedian Imroati in 2015, there are several negative impacts of early marriage. The impact is that 56% of adolescent girls experience domestic violence or KDRT. Adolescents are unable to achieve a high level of education because only 5.6% of adolescents with early marriage are still continuing their education after marriage, and the risk of maternal and infant mortality is 30%. Other research also states that early marriage is associated with poverty and result in reduced access to education for women. Therefore, it is not necessary to remove the age limit for marriage. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Khomsan Nur Asih, as the Deputy Leader of Opposition, rejecting today's motion. The age limit for marriage is carried due to several considerations, including in the field of health, as previously explained by the Leader of Opposition, education, economic, social, and religion. Education. Education is a guide in the life of girls, of students, and adolescents, namely gaining all the natural forces that exist in them so that they as human and as a member of society can achieve the highest safety and happiness. The elimination of age limit for marriage has an impact on the level of education. The existence of a minimum age limit for marriage provides more opportunities for adolescents to complete high school education before marriage. Saraswati, in her journal entitled The Influence of Education and Health Levels PDRB per capita in the city of Surabaya, said that education has an effect on human resources. Human resources are the capital of a nation to improve human quality, where humans are production factors that are active in raising capital, building social, economic, political organization, and carrying out national development. With education, adolescents will have birth and mature insight in responding to something, including in married life. With adequate education, adolescents will be better prepared to face all the problems that exist in married life. Abu, UGM Public Relations Officer, in his article entitled Higher Education, Lower Divorce Intention, said that indirectly, education factors have an effect on divorce rates. This is why eliminating the age limit for marriage is not necessary. In addition, eliminate the age limit for marriage, which means legalizing early marriage, also carries a high risk of divorce. From a social perspective, marriage at a young age will have an impact on divorce and infidelity. This is due to unstable emotion, change in adolescence, so that it is easy to find between the two. In addition, domestic violence or KDRT, this violence includes sexual violence experienced by the wife because of an unbalanced relationship, resulting in the breakup of a marital relationship. Divorce can also occur due to immature marriage preparation or marriage at a young age, and there is no strong mental readiness to face life after marriage. When viewed from the high number of early marriage, then this is certainly and influence on the divorce of young couples. Ms. Gringes and Hobohoris research show that there are 50% of early marriage that end in divorce. Again, as mentioned earlier, early marriage carries a high risk of divorce. One reason is the economic factor. Early marriage is unwittingly the cause of poverty cycle in family. This can happen because children who marry early are generally not well established or cannot get a job like adults. Because by marrying at a young age, they will be expelled from school and forced to become housewives and isolated. So they tend to still be dependent for their families. As a result of these problems, parents have a double burden of having to support a new family member. Then, last but not least, from a religious perspective, which is the main support for the opinion of the proposition, I am of a different opinion. According to Ibn Shukrumah and Abu Bakr al-Asham, early marriage is forbidden. MUI decide that early marriage is basically legal as long as the condition and pillars of marriage have been fulfilled. However, the law will become haram if the marriage actually causes harm. Then, age maturity is the indicator for the achievement of marriage goals. The purpose of marriage is the benefit of married life and society and guarantees for pregnancy. Then, MUI decide for the sake of benefit the marriage provision were returned to the age standardization provision referring to law number 1 of 1974 concerning marriage. As with the previous consideration, it is clear that the element of the age limit for marriage, which indirectly legalize early marriage, bring a lot of harm. One of which is divorce. While Allah hates divorce, the hadith reads from Ibnu Umar radhiyallahu that the Prophet ﷺ said, the lawful thing that Allah hates the most is divorce. Hadis riwayat Abu Dawud number 1863, Majah number 208. All in all, a net age restriction for marriage is not necessary. Thank you.
I thank the member for her remarks. I now call upon the third speaker for the proposition, member for government.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce myself. My name is Fadia and Rizqi as a member of government. As in various areas of the positive impact of the non-necessary eliminate age restriction marriage mentioned by Deputy Oxide, I disagree with that. The proposition believes that these fields are only operational. They don't pay attention to the social-psychological aspect of people at that age. In reality, people who are in the same period of time that can have different social-psychological conditions. Some have work, others have not. Some have matured psychologically, others have not. Thus, we must pay attention to a person's socio-psychological when making a decision to marry, not only seeing the negative impact of various files arising from the eliminate age restriction marriage. First, in terms of education, if a country pays too much attention to education or a high level of education, will have an impact on low birth rate. For example, as reported by the OECD survey or the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development taken in 2019, the country of South Korea with data showing 69.8% of Korean population has education. Inversely, proportional to the birth rate in South Korea India, as reported by the CIA World Factbook 202 in 2021, has a birth rate per thousand population which is only 6.89%. Another country, that is Japan. According to OECD in 2019, Japan reached 61.5% of the educated population, but the birth rate was only 7% of the thousand of the population. This is based on the CIA World Factbook 232 in 2021. This shows that people who focus more on education, even though the age are sufficient, they will not be interested in getting married. Next, from a social perspective, people who marry at an early age will be more mature or accelerate a person to reach maturity. This is based on the social reality, which shows that in the life of a household, there are many obstacles. Those obstacles, if contemplated, provide good mental education. For those who are often hit by various difficulties, it will be easier for them to understand life. Because of that, the household matures more quickly. Next, from an economic point of view, Sri Haryanti in her journal entitled Faktor Penyebab Perkawinan di Bawah Umur di Desa Pedongan, Kecamatan Banjarharjo, Kabupaten Brebes, she explained that underage marriage occurs because of family conditions living in poverty. To ease the burden on their parents, their daughters married with a person who is considered capable, so that one member of his family will reduce to the responsibility of his parents. Next, in terms of religions, Ibn Hazm in his book Al-Muhalla states that it is permissible to marry a girl who is still underage, while a boy cannot be married until he is of puberty or valid, where the determination of puberty or valid has been explained by Prime Minister. According to Rizqi Amalia in her journal entitled Pernikahan di Bawah Umur Perspektif Hukum Islam dan Peraturan Perundang-undangan Indonesia, early marriage will have more religious values. By getting married, it will be faster to get the values of worship compared to postponing marriage, because in Islam, a household has a lot of heritable land. For a husband to support his wife and his children's life, providing a living is a noble act. Even categories is jihad. Like this, the wife providing food for her husband, welcoming him after coming home from work, and educating her children will get abundant rewards. In addition, with the eliminated age restriction marriage, there will be negative impact in society. In Khomsan research in 2013, research in Indonesia shows that sometimes marriage at a young age occurs as a solution for pregnancies that occur before marriage. This happens because of the freedom of association between sexes in adolescence, which can easily be witnessed in everyday life. As a result of controlled promiscuity requires teenagers to marry at an early age, which is considered a solution to solve problems and can cover the family's distress from the woman. So, if the abolition of the age limit for marriage is not enforced, the woman will have to bear the burden of giving birth to her child without a father, and it will be a disgrace to the woman's family. The next impact is when a couple who are ready to get married but is hindered by the age limit for marriage, they will look for other alternatives, and the phenomenon arises like the unregistered marriage or pernikahan siri. and other forms of illegal marriage such as contract marriage. Unregistered marriage or pernikahan siri are marriage that are carried out according to legal condition but are not registered by the government, so that they do not obtain the marriage certificate as the only formal legal proof of marriage. Illegal marriage, such as unregistered marriage, which does not involve legal registration and are declared a violation of the law as stated in Law Number 222 of 1946, which states that every marriage must be supervised by a marriage registrar, and this is accompanied by sanction in the form of fines and imprisonment. So here the abolition of the age limit for marriage is necessary so that illegal marriage such as unregistered marriage do not occur. Imagine if a couple who is not approved for marriage just because of the age limit then chooses an alternative illegal marriage or unregistered marriage. This can cause more complicated and detrimental problems, especially for women. In Jurnal Nikah Siri dan Akibat Hukumnya menurut UU Perkawinan, some of negative impacts of unregistered marriage are that if the marriage is not legally registered, the parties involve mental difficulty in managing children certificate. The parties involved cannot legally claim their rights. For example, the wife's right to earn a living both physically and mentally, difficulties in managing children's certificate, children custody rights, children's education rights, wife inheritance right, child inheritance right, guardianship rights for daughter who will marry, and many other problems. In brief, the number of teenagers who get pregnant before marriage and the unregistered marriage carried out by underage teenagers are two things that urgently need to eliminate age restriction marriage. Okay, thank you for attention. That's all for me.
I thank the member for her remarks. I now call upon the third speaker for the opposition. Member of opposition.
I am Liyatun Nadiyah as member of opposition. Regarding of your argument, I am not sure about that. I can understand that unregistered marriage falls under the head category, which under Islamic law is legal, whereas it is legally illegitimate, nullified, or annulled. To obtain the legal status of unregistered marriage by the first converting or legalizing to their marriage in religious courts. For those carrying out unregistered marriage, Government Regulation Number 9 of 1975, Article 45, is subject to this rule not because of the compliance of the marriage, but because of its transgressions. Nevertheless, also, unregistered marriage, when viewed from a human perspective on rights, is not unlawful, because the marital problems are fundamental to human rights that are achieved from birth and are regulated in the Constitution, the 1945 Constitution, as well as in the Law Number 39 of 1999 of Human Rights. As the Deputy Leader of Opposition has pointed out, the elimination of age limits has led to an unwanted phenomenon in early marriages. I might add that early marriages threaten the well-being of children. The Women's Health Foundation, or EDCT, tells that early marriages have the potential to raise school dropouts and poverty as a result of reappropriation of children's right to growth, education, and work. Adolescents, in general, still do not have stable finance and are unsure of their careers and their future. not to mention still has to face with pressure from parents, school, or college. In addition, there are considerable adverse effects from early marriage on the reproductive health problems of teenage women. As we know, being married at an early age contributes to maternal mortality in childbirth, since the female reproductive apparatus is not yet established. Early marriage is also known to increase the risk of miscarriage, infant death, cervical cancer, venereal disease, to mental distress caused by social pressure, to shoulder adult responsibilities at an early age. In the Islamic context, Islam highly upholds the child and firmly protects the child. Islam expressly states the children conceived by mothers have the right to be born safely into the world. The statement is in accordance with Surah Al-An'am 151 that affirms that you must not kill a child born. In my view, bringing the age limit of marriage is not necessary. I have a question. Is it true that the sooner you get married, the better? Judging from the ideal age of marriage established by the laws before revision, it should come as no surprise that marriage at young age is a common sight on this country, almost glorified even. Ironically, religion is not the most ideal marriage path. Same as the data from the Deputy Leader, according to data from the National Planning and Family Planning Agency (PKPN), early marriages among adolescents in their late teens to their early 20s are common out of wedlock reasons. After all, many adolescents are immature in terms of maturity in how to think things out, and inexperienced enough to deal with domestic conflicts, which in turn contrasts totally with marital thing from a courtship. Experts believe that postponing marriage for several years can further foster an ideal and secure home and lower the risk of divorce. There are many reasons. One is the maturity factors. Adults here not only pre-alter but also in terms of emotional intelligence and maturity of mindset. In your mid-20s, you were mature enough to understand correctly which love blended loose and love based on sincerity. As one grows older, they have spent considerable time on this journey of discovery and discovery. They also understand their rights and responsibilities in order to achieve the purpose of life. A person's growing older might also indicate that they have advanced physical maturity and financial stability to sustain themselves and all alone. It is mentioned before that a law regarding the minimum age limit for women before marriage is a commitment to protect women and children's rights in aspects of education, social, and cultural, and child growth. At 0 to 10 years of age and 10 to 18 years old, both women and men are still in process of growth, or the initial process of coming to the establishment of a physical and mental states. In the process, they are entitled to such right as the right to proper upbringing, guidance, and instruction from parents, families, and works. Then it is done, and they are entitled to suitable education for shaping their intellectual, intelligence, and skills. Therefore, these rights must be guarded by the state and not to be abandoned. Not to mention the fact that the new Marriage Act Law number 19 of 2019 changed the limit to marrying a woman who will get married at least at 19 years old, right? Previously, on Law number 1 of 1974, the marriage limit for men is 19 and 16 years old for women. With the release of Law number 16 of 2019, the government will draft a national policy on the prevention of child marriage as a follow-up, including a follow-up campaign for the child's marriage. Child marriage should be prevented from starting village levels. What about the bride who is not 19 years old but still wants to get married? The new Marriage Act provides a loophole by courts of dispensation for solid reasons, as stated in Article 7, Section 3. The Islamic Community Guidance Ministry for Muhammadiyah, Amin, welcomed the application of the Law Number 16 of 2019, which revises the Law Number 1 of 1974 on marriage. More early age marriages than their benefits are those of many who are neglected as a result of their birth of single mother. The case of child marriage is sure to occur every year, and religious tribunals are always on the rise. In response in this, the Assistant Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, Saiful Majid, they was preparing a dispensation rules to identify there was or no conclusion in filing for child marriage dispensations. They asked the judge to consider the best protection and interest of the child. Thus, I don't agree that the age restriction for marriage is eliminated. Restriction can separate the things we are acceptable and good for us from the things we don't like and make it bad for us. There's even a loophole like dispensation in the restriction itself, so there's no need for actions. So that's all from me. Thank you.
I thank the member for her remarks. At this time, the government whip and the opposition whip will deliver summary and rebuttal speech. No new information may be introduced during the speeches. We will start with the proposition speaker, the government whip.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am Fida Imroati Saadah as Government Chief Whip. All in all, humans were created as social beings, namely beings who need each other and depend on each other. And from this interdependency, one way to complete the life between man and woman is to tie them in a sacred bond called marriage. According to Law Number 16 of 2019, which is an amendment to Law Number 1 of 1974 concerning marriage, the minimum age for marriage is 19 years. However, there are exceptions if you have not reached the age of 19 but have the approval of your parents and the court, you can apply for marriage. There are two terms when we discuss the age limit for marriage, namely child marriage and early marriage. Child marriage is a term for marriage carried out by children aged 0 until 18 years. Marriage between the age of 19 until 25, the term early marriage is known. According by the Prime Minister, the advantages of early marriage are avoiding free sex behavior and stepping on old age, no longer having young children. The positive impact of early marriage, but from a religious perspective, is avoiding free sex behavior because sexual needs are met, and there is an assumption that if you marry young, you will no longer have young children. In addition to this, the positive impact of marriage at a young age is it can reduce the burden on parents because by marrying of their children, all the needs of their children will be met by the husband. Then, what is the age limit for marriage in an Islamic perspective? The Prophet advised young people to get married immediately so that they lower their age and were their preferred parts. In general, the Prophet did not prohibit marriage at a young age. Based on the hadith, being able is one of the things that are considered to be able to carry out marriage. Islam recognizes the term akil balik. Akil balik is a benchmark for someone to get married. MUI also emphasized that religious law, including Islam, does not set an age limit for marriage. In Islam, only regular balik or maturity with some side. Then regarding pregnancy at an early age which is considered a risk of harm to the mother and fetus. Here we discussed the age limit for marriage.
not pregnancy, because marriage does not require a person to have children as soon as possible afterward. However, the sign of maturity in Islam that have mentioned before, it also shows they have reached the age of physical maturity. According to ulama Shihab also cite that no one has set an age limit for the prospective bride before marriage, which is stated in the Quran and the Sunnah is the purpose of marriage. Then to refute what the deputy opposite side asked from various fields about impact positive from the need the eliminate restriction marriage from the Prime Minister team or government members not agree with that because of course just feel that the goal only operational, no notice aspect social psychological people one period age there. In fact, the people who are in one period sometimes will all stay different social psychological. Aside from the member of government, with the imposition of the restriction for marriage, there will appear impacts negative in society. In study Khomsan Nur research in Indonesia shows that sometimes marriage at young occurs a solution for pregnancy that happen outside marriage. This thing occurred because existence freedom association between type sex and teenager with each can live in life every day. Pregnancy that does not plan in things that appear before marriage as a result from association with free which is not controlled require teenager for to do marriage in age considered early. A solution for complete problem and full same family from party female. So if the age limit for marriage is not enforced, women should be burdened give birth her child without a father and think the will become same for families women. Impact like that is when a pair of couple who have already married however block limitation age marriage, so they will look for other alternative and appear phenomenon that is marriage series and sex illegal marriage other as marriage contract. Illegal marriage that does not involve recording law and declares as violation law as listed in law number 22 of 1946, which states that every marriage should supervised by employing not taker and think the accompanied penalty in the form of fine and confinement body. So that eliminated age restriction marriage very necessary so as not occur illegal marriage. In journal marriage series and consequence the law according to the marriage law, it is that a number of impact negative marriage series that is when marriage not be included by law so related parties no could demand right by law as example right way for both living both born nor mind, trouble management did child, right nurturing child, right education child, right inheritance wife, right inheritance child, right guardianship for children who will marry and still many others problems. Based on the argument that have been put aside, once again, we agree with the motion this goes will eliminate age restriction marriage. That's all from me. Thank you.
We will now hear the opposition final summary and rebuttal to be delivered by the opposition whip.
I, Farida, I as the opposition whip. The age limit for marriage is still a polemic. Now, let me just reiterate the main point our previous speaker have presented. In Islam, because marriage is a form of perfecting religion, it must be carried out with all care and full consideration. So, we should agree that marriage is not a matter that can be completed in 1 year, 2 years, or several years. Getting married is a long life relationship. a lifelong bond, one partner until death. Ideally so. Marriage is also not because of coercion of circumstance. Then, recently, as a speaker from our team said that there is a question whether the sooner you get married, the better. Based on data from the National Population and Family Planning Board (BKKBN), early marriage among teenagers in their late teens to early 20s mostly occur for traditional reasons or pregnancies of out wedlock. So, for those who have done something and are forced to marry by circumstance, how about the quality of their marriage? What preparation do they have? This is a big question that is not to be put to rest but to be seriously considered. For parents whose sons and daughters have problems, marrying off their children even though they are minors is the best way to wash away social sins and restore the family's good name. So, let's just quickly remember what we heard from the Prime Minister with his assumption that by marrying off children at a young age, the burden on parents will be reduced because the child's life will be the responsibility of the spouse after marriage. What is exactly the Prime Minister wanted to talk about in this statement? The assumption looks wise and very solution. Even though if we observe more closely, this choice has the potential to perpetuate chain of early marriage in Indonesia. Those who are given the option of getting married early, I don't think it solves the problem, but instead it has the potential to create other new problems. Next, Marriage Law number 16 of 2019 has changed the marriage age limit of 19 years for women and men. Previously, in Law number 1 of 1970 for the age limit for marriage for men was 19 years and for women 16 years. Furthermore, marriage dispensation as an entry point for early marriage has long been a serious discussion. Marriage dispensation for judges in the religious courts is like a Simalakama fruit. If it is granted, it makes it seem as if the marriage dispensation is very detrimental to Law number 1 of 1974 concerning marriage, especially within the minimum age limits for marriage. In terms of principal argument, what we have said so far, there are points of reason for the existence of marriage age limit. The first is that early marriage makes room for self-development to be limited. The adolescent phase is an important stage in life to explore self-potential. Teenagers who decide to get married early will feel they have lost their youth asset that should be able to serve and take part in society. Then, teenagers who marry at an early age often experience family economic problem as a source of family disharmony. In addition, many of them have not had optimal education. Limited education ultimately limits access to employment opportunities for them. This causes the economic condition of couples who marry early to be difficult to improve. After that, many couples divorce because of the family's financial failure. Furthermore, the young age to carry out the household often makes the couple unable to think maturely. His emotional condition is not yet stable, so it's easy to get carried away by anger and ego. In the end, the problem is not solved by means of communication and discussion, but by means of violence, both physically and verbally. Although initially early marriage was intended to protect oneself from sexual violence, the reality is quite the opposite. Finally, the problems that arise as a result of this marriage are health problems, especially the health of the children who will be born. In brief, marriage is not as simple as imagining. It requires maturity in terms of physical, psychological, and emotional. This is why early marriage is discouraged and the number of early marriages should be emphasized.
With the argument that I have presented, I once again emphasize that we from the opposition strongly disagree with the motion we are debating today, namely this House would eliminate age restriction for marriage. That's all from me. Thank you.
I thank the member for concluding the debate. That is all for today's debate. On behalf of the House, I congratulate all debaters on their performances. Since this debate is now concluded and there is no other business on the order paper, the House stands adjourned. I am as moderator apologize if there are any mistakes in my speech or behavior either intentionally or unintentionally. Thank you for your attention and see you.